Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome in. We're back. Another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. I'm excited for this one. The title of today's show is How to Sell Anything with the Rainbow of Sales. I have no idea what that means. It sounds really, really cool though. And I have a guest who I hope is going to explain what that means. So we're both on a time crunch. We're going to get right to it, which is awesome. So let me welcome her in. Courtney, thank you for being on the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. What if I was like, yeah, I have no idea what it is, can't help you.
That would be amazing because then we would just have a conversation and see what happens. But you must be in sales of some capacity, I assume. So
yeah,
tell me, what is it that you do?
Yeah, so my background is in sales copywriting. And so my work is really catered towards service providers and online course creators who have online based businesses. And these are the kind of folks who end up realizing they need some kind of page, whether it's on their website or it's a landing page that sells people on hiring them or enrolling in their program. And so my expertise is, I like sales in general, but is really in crafting the words that go on those pages.
You know, my favorite part of sales copywriting is
none of it
at all.
You're in good company, I would say, because most people, when they have even on their to-do list, write sales copy, it usually comes with like a puke emoji next to it, right? It's like, I'd rather do, my favorite thing I've been saying for 10 years, because I've been teaching this for a long time, is I'd rather stab myself in the eye with a rusty fork than write a sales page. And the problem with that is, it's so relatable. I mean, it's like funny, but it's relatable. The problem with that is that if that's the energy we inject into our writing, that is what our target clients are like. Even if it's not conscious, that's what's coming through, because writing is such an inherently creative task. And so you have to move away from that. So my favorite thing is to make it easy and fun, as easy as possible and as fun as possible. You still have to do the work. But I think for most people, they're making it so much harder than it needs to be.
I love that. I love the approach, easy and fun. It's just an energy shift. If you approach things with that energy, it's going to go a lot better. So I'm excited to dive in, but I'm curious. You've been doing this for 10 years. I think you said you've been in the industry for over 13 years at this point.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I'm a dinosaur in online business. Yeah.
Well, I mean, your words, not mine, but anyway. But I'm curious, what got you into, I guess, copywriting and sales in general?
So of all things, my bachelor's degree is in French, so completely seemingly unrelated. Once I got my bachelor's degree, I actually moved to France for a couple of years, and I was teaching English in an elementary school part-time. And while I was there, I was like 22, 23. I was trying to figure out, what do I want to do with my life? What job do I want to get? And there's not many things that go along with a French degree other than living in France and trying to figure that out, right? So I stumbled on this world of online business. This was back in like 2011. And I saw people like Marie Forleo online, who is teaching like women how to start businesses online. And I was like, wait, hold the phone. I could like start an online business and never get a real job. So that's really where it started for me. And then it took me a year or two to really get anything off the ground that I would say resembles a business. But I did start offering like services and freelancing. And I just started throwing things at the wall and trying to figure out what worked. And the reason I got into sales copy is because I started out as a resume writer. My background was in writing, and I used to work at the writing center in my college. And when I was, when I created an ebook to teach people how to write their own resumes, nobody bought it. And it was like $12. And I was so upset because I had like a few hundred people in my audience at that point. It was a lot easier back in that day to grow your audience online, and nobody bought it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a failure. I suck. Like, I'll never be able to do this. And then And, once I had my pity party, I decided to dive in to figure out what actually gets people to buy things online. So now, like $12, I can handle. I've sold things in my own business up to $12,000, like no problem. So, but in all of those things, whether it's a $12 ebook or a $12,000 high ticket coaching program, the sales page is always following the same formula. And that's really where that, like you said, that little tease hook thing, that rainbow of sales really comes in, because the rainbow of sales is all about how you position what you're selling so that the person who's reading it goes, oh, that's me. I need that.
I love that. And you make it sound so simple. Which
Try.
that's so amazing about you.
So.
This is not easy. And I've done it. I've hired people to do it. I've gotten good results and bad results. And I know I'm nowhere near you in terms of skill. That's not what I'm saying, but you make it sound very easy and it's not. So I'm curious, what is the rainbow of selling?
Yeah.
First of all, and what is this pattern that we need to be aware of?
Exactly. So the rainbow of sales is my version of what I think is a pretty fairly well known in the sales universe kind of metaphor. So I've heard this said, I think sort of the old school one is something about you're an island and you need a boat to get to the other island. And it's basically like where you are right now, where you want to be, and then what's going to get you there. And those are really the three factors that you need. So for me, I grew up in the era of Lisa Frank journals in elementary school with all like rainbows and glitter and unicorns. And I used to love drawing rainbows with a cloud on one end and a pot of gold on the other. That's the rainbow of sales. Like I've literally like leveraged something I used to doodle as a child into my best, most branded concept in my business. So the cloud represents where your target clients or customers are right now psychologically. What is going on for them that is frustrating, that they don't want? Some people call that the problem, the pain points, all that. Those things people can get a little annoyed by. But essentially, what is going on for them right now that they don't like, that they're frustrated with, as it pertains to your offer? So that's that core problem. And then on the flip side is the pot of gold, which is what is their ultimate desired result? What is that transformation? What do they want to make happen? And we need to make those things specific. So we can't have a list of like 20 things. I start with that, but then we need to figure out what's the core one and as tangible as possible so that we're clear on who we're speaking to, what their core problem is, what their desired result is. And then the rainbow represents your offer, your business, whatever it is you're selling, as the bridge between those two places. So once you're clear with somebody, whether this is in a sales conversation or on a sales page or anything else, you're essentially going to go, hey, what's the problem you have? Or is this the problem that you have? And once that's clear, you go, okay, what's the result you want instead? What is like your ultimate, where would you like to be with this in a month, 6 months, a year, whatever's relevant to your offer. And then you could say, okay, so here's the thing that I'm selling you. I usually don't use those words, but just to be vague. And here's how that can help you to get from where you are now to where you want to go. And those three factors, that's not all there is to selling, but it's like 80% of the heavy lifting. Really, anything else after that is overcoming objections and answering questions.
We talk about this all the time at What If, is the 80-20 rule. What is that tiny little thing that's going to get you the majority of the way there? And in terms of running your business and your operations, just do that. So
Yes.
In terms of sales, how do you go about identifying that 20% that's going to get the biggest lift before you worry about the objections?
Yeah. So in terms of the language and like resonating with people, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like when you're working with a
Yeah.
client to write a sales
Yeah.
page or design an offer, how do you go about that process?
Yeah. So I'm always going to start with, I call them your muses. So most people call them like your ideal client avatars or something like that. I like muses, because I like to brand my own concepts and not use what everyone else is using. But I also like it because I want people to, instead of inventing a person, which is totally fine and that works for a lot of people and it's a very tried and true concept. But I always struggle with that one because I'm like, well, I could just invent anything I wanted and I still don't know if it exists. Like, I don't know if this person exists. So what I do is every time I'm creating an offer, I'm helping someone else with their offering and designing that or positioning it. I want them to tell me 3 people they actually know who are a perfect fit for this offer. And I want to dig in on each of those people's like, what's the right word there? Rainbow of sales. So I'll ask whenever someone's stuck, this is what we do. Okay, tell me one of your muses. And they'll say, okay, one of my muses is Jessica, and Jessica is a mom and she's overwhelmed, whatever it is, right? And so, okay, what is Jessica's problem? And I'll just listen to the client, just sort of like word vomit on that. Okay, what is it that Jessica wants? Who is Jessica jealous of? What is it that she's really trying to create that she hasn't been able to do herself? And then when we do that for 3 examples, 3 muses, that's when you can start to see the thread. What's the thing that all of them are wanting? And if there's not, maybe we're trying to help way too many people, right? Like that sometimes happens, but more often than not, 80% of the time, I love that concept as well. 80% of the time, it's going to go, oh, this is the way we need to talk about this. So it's a good rule of 3 concept, because I feel like 1 could be an outlier, 2 could be a coincidence, but once we've got 3, now I can start to see a trend, and I can see, okay, what is that real pain point that I can help to solve?
That's really interesting. I hate the idea of an avatar, because,
Me
like you
too,
said,
honestly.
they're made up, and it's your perception of what's out there, but it's not real.
Yeah.
I like the idea of using real people and people you personally know. I think that's
because otherwise, like, you're gonna have to sell this to someone. So we need to start. If you don't know 3 people, you shouldn't be creating this offer yet. Then you need to go out and meet people, because otherwise you're creating something for nobody. We need, as anyone who decided to sell something knows, you gotta have people to sell to.
Really? Is that true?
But it's amazing how many business owners start off and they just go, I want to create this thing. I'm going to create it and then I'm going to sell it. You got to find your buyers first and then create the thing for them.
That's a gut punch for a lot of people. That's powerful. I love that. And I don't know if you know this, but we use one of our muses is named Jessica. Is that just the most common name ever?
It's
so random.
I think any of us were like millennials. That's probably like, it is one of the top names. Yeah.
That's so funny. Maybe our
I have
Jessica's
like 10 clients named Jessica. So
that's so funny. Okay, so we're moving through the rainbow of sales. We understand where they are, where they want to go, and our service or product is the solution to get them there. What are the other elements? Obviously, we have to overcome objections, but what are the other key points of a sales page that we need to keep in mind when we're going through this and designing this for our offers?
Okay, so there's a couple of trouble spots that are, I would say, 99% of the time people are really struggling with, that have a massive effect on the results, i.e. the sales, right? I think the biggest one is that people really struggle in how to communicate what's included in their offer in a way that isn't confusing and is also complete, right? So I see a lot of people, really common is they'll have a page, they'll be like, okay, this is my coaching package. And they'll just be like a bullet point list of like, you get 3 calls. And it's like, I'm glad you have that information there. Like, I'm not going to fault anyone for that, but we aren't necessarily presenting it in a way that is utilizing the real estate of the page so that each of those items is standing out. And so so that's the first thing is laying out your offer details in a way that makes sense to people. And I think what makes that hard is we know our offers so well because we made them. And so we suffer from the curse of knowledge. And so we share our offers with people and we don't realize that we're omitting really important information because we're like, oh, that's obvious. It's not obvious. So I like to think of it as you want to present your offer in a hierarchical order, meaning, okay, what are the main components of your offer? Like if there are like 2 or 3, like let's say, so I have a high ticket coaching program and my 3 main components are there's the course, there's coaching, and there's critiques. Okay. So then it's like, you're kind of just orienting them to like, okay, that's the main structure. Okay. Then within the course, there's all these things. Then within the coaching, this is how that works. And then with the critiques, this is what that is. So you need to kind of give people the information from big picture to small details in that kind of way. I think that's the biggest mistake people make. And that's a very, feels like a very logistical answer, but it's a very logistical problem, right? And then the second thing that comes up is just I call it, I love the word hierarchy, I guess, but it's important on sales pages because you've got this long page and you've all this stuff on it, and you need to use visual cues so that people know what to look at, or else they become overwhelmed really easily. And so I like people to follow what I call the hierarchy of text. And I want on every sales page, and this is very specific to sales pages, right? I want on every sales page, but also any other kind of content, is to be you have a headline like type of font or size, you have a subheadline, and you have body text. A lot of people, what happens is they have like their headlines are all different sizes and different areas, and then they have too many different fonts. And it's amazing how just literally, I know it's so basic, but literally just going in and saying, okay, for every section on my page, the headline is, 25 point font. For the subheadline, it's 18 point. For the text, it's 14 point, like whatever that is. That's going to make such a big difference because people need to be able to scan a sales page, and they can't do that when their brains are getting overwhelmed by the information. And especially those of us with neurodivergences like me, I have ADHD. I'm such a scanner. But even if you watch look at any heat map data on sales pages, what happens is people will look at the page, they'll kind of read the first bit, the rainbow of sales, more intently, so important, right? Then they kind of go down really fast, and then they kind of come up and they start to go through it again, and then they might go up and go. So people are reading in a hierarchical way. They're reading the main information that stands out first, the headlines. Then they're reading some of the subtext. Then if they're kind of convinced, they'll go, okay, let me make sure I go read all the details. Then some people like me, we just never read all the details. I'm just like, I'm in, let's go, I'm buying it. But for the people who even say, oh, I read every word on a sales page, chances are, actually, not even, I guarantee you, they're not sitting there reading word for word the first time. They're still doing like kind of overview scan, this and that. So we need to make sure we're calling out with those headlines when we're laying out the page. It's a little bit more of a visual tip there.
Yeah, that's a fantastic tip too. And along with those headlines and the first rainbow, I think what a lot of people get hung up on is the actual content of it. Now we'll speak about Jessica in particular. So something I've noticed recently in experimenting with a couple of our offers is, and talking to other people too, is you have the ability to immediately grab the right or wrong buyer. So how do you know what language to use? We'll just use the regular vague language. Are you speaking to problem aware people, solution aware people? Are you speaking into and motivating or inciting more pain? Like, what is your format or
I love to incite pain, baby. No, I'm just kidding.
Twist that nail in there. Fork in the eyeballs, right?
My past coach, her name's Mariah Cause. She's absolutely just an absolute wizard on the internet. Has a method that I love, and I just have not thought of a better way of explaining it than hers. So I want to give her credit for this. She teaches people to always speak to your champagne clients. So her concept is that people will rise up, but you don't want to speak to the lowest common denominator, like possible client, like the least ready client, because then the people who are ready are going to feel like it's too basic for them. So if I'm trying to work with people on training their cats to do backflips, let's say, then I could be like, well, some people have kittens. They don't know. It's like, I want someone, my ideal person is someone who is like already kind of nerded out on this stuff. They're like, but like, there might be people who they just have a new cat and they're just some on my page and they're interested, but I'm not going to speak to those people necessarily, because then the people who are a little bit more into this stuff are going to feel like, oh, this is too basic for me. I'm beyond that. Whereas the people who are not quite there in terms of maybe check the boxes for your offer, whatever it is, who are like, I want to rise to that occasion, I want to be that, they will show up with a different energy. But you don't want your like champagne clients, as Mariah calls them, to have to come down to meet you. So I think always speaking to your highest denominator client, but I also think that there is an element of throwing in details on your page that even within that, you're going to have probably a range, right? So throwing in language that speaks to each type of level in that range. So for example, I'll say like, maybe you just Maybe you just started your business last year and you've only been doing this for a year. So I'm basically saying like, that's my lowest level person. Maybe you've been at this for a while. Maybe you've already made $1 million, right? So I'm saying, okay, that's my range of people, but I don't want newbies. So I'm like, not going to speak to those people. So I think just knowing what your range is, and the real lesson here is just don't try to speak to everybody. Anytime you try to speak to everybody, you're speaking to nobody. And that's really what's going to keep you stuck.
Yeah, that's a fantastic tip right there. Champagne clients, speak to the specifics and attract the ideal client. If you take nothing else from this episode, I hope you take that away from it. I know we got to go. We got to wrap this one up.
Yeah.
This has been fantastic. There's so many different directions we could have gone. I hate that we're out of time, but if someone wants to take the next step in working with you in revamping their sales pages, where do we go? You have a website, a download? What do you got?
Yeah, you can go to CourtneyChaal.com. That's how my name is pronounced, CH2AL. But I have free sales page templates. They're Google Docs that are the entire framework. Like everything I just talked about. If you go to CourtneyChaal.com/template or templates, it's either template, singular or plural, then you'll be able to download. It's two Google Docs. One is more for a service and one is more for a course sales page, but those are fantastic. Like I love offering those for free because they're like should be paid, but I'm like, no, I want to give them for free so everyone goes and gets them, right? So it's like literally tells you, put this headline here, put this information here. It's like a template for the copy for your page.
That's fantastic. I just looked it up because I'm for a friend, I'm going to send it to
Yeah, for a friend. Someone who's really struggling.
I'm going to go do this myself. Enough of this garbage. I need this help too. It is CourtneyChaal.com/template. No S.
Template, just one. And then I surprise you by giving you two, but I already ruined the surprise. So
So look at that. Bad copywriting or ever. Incongruent with her templates. Courtney, this was so much fun. I would love to have you back for a part 2. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to download these
work on your templates. Yeah.
Revise my sales pages and see where it gets me. And I'll let you know on part 2. But for those of you listening, watching, wherever you are, thank you for listening. First and foremost, love to have you here. Make sure you subscribe, comment, so we can continue doing this ridiculous show that we do here and bring on amazing guests like Courtney. Courtney, thanks again for coming. We'll see you on the next episode of Harmonious at Lunch. See ya.